Hello and welcome into the Sorare Data Show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Today to talk about the progress bar, which doesn't exist anymore because we have Essence. Let's go. Thanks everyone for coming in. Mike Baston, first on the podium, way to be, smelling essence of a podium here. You've got it. Tuggy says, I'm here for Laird to try and explain ionic and covalent bonding. Which one is the essence reaction? I have no idea. Before I go any further, I want to apologize to Tuggy. On Wednesday's show, I said he's basically a chemist, and I was wrong about that. He is completely a chemist. There's no basically about it. So my apologies. Let's put some respect on Tuggy's chemist name, excuse me, and that's it. Toby says, smells like an MMD weekend. I'm there. I'm there. Crazy progress. What's that? Kreutzy? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Sorare Turkey, hello. John Andrews, what's up? Alex Wilson. Yeah, the band is back. Copenhagen, hopefully crushing this weekend. Fabian, hello. Mike Basson feels like I have a regress bar. Surface to air missile, good morning. Gavin, good evening to you. Stefan, hello. Redder Dead 69. Loving the Andy Black cosplay. Yeah, with my St. Louis jersey here. This was, what did I say here? Covalent? I don't know. I was a liberal arts major, so. Boston Sean, appreciate you actually changing your name on here. I would have known though. But anyway, this jersey was actually a gift from Jimmer, not Andy Black. But yeah, shout out to Jimmer. That's right, David Alves. Leave a like if you guys wouldn't mind doing that. It's always appreciated. Boston Sean, 2 cards from 4 boxes in MLB. Way to go. Way to go. Covalent? That's what happens when you let chemists name stuff. Covalent. Get out of here. Anyway. So I wanted to talk about some of the reactions to our reactions this week. And mostly from yesterday's Sorare Andrews, which I think would classify as a classic Sorare Andrews episode, to be honest. And for those of you who are not a long-time watcher of this channel, Andy and I believe have done, well, we've definitely done more than 150 shows together. We know each other very well. And there are a lot of people, well, you know, in this grand scheme of things. And we like to joke around about things when given the opportunity. And yesterday we felt like a good opportunity to joke about something that we actually think is very good. And that's what we did. And so the reaction, it feels like too many people are focusing on the way that, and I think we basically mocked it, to be honest. And that followed Tuesday's show with Peter Stoyanov, who's Yowza on Sorare, and MPen 10, where we were talking about essence, and it all felt very foreign to us because it was not a part of Sorare. And I think generally the feeling this week is that we've been mocking it. And that's true. We have been, because we felt like what essence represents is a fantastic idea, and one that has been discussed on this channel it hasn't been discussed continuously for years, but it's something that Maxime, who for those of you who don't know is the founder of Sorare Data, had brought up years ago, that at some point Sorare needed to find a way to essentially have a reward system that wasn't completely dependent on cards, but that would allow you to earn basically points towards a card at some point. And it would just slow the distribution of card rewards, because just based on the scarcities, mostly for rare and super rare, we're not nearly there on unlimited yet. But they're just, at some point, there are just not going to be enough cards. Like that's a good problem to have for Sorare, because it means that there are a lot of users. But at some point, they need to reward more, or just kind of slow the distribution. And that's what the whole idea of the progress bar was. And it feels like that's what the point of essence is, despite so many people trying to say that it's an obvious step towards burning. And I'll get into the burning thing at some point. But the reason I don't want to say the reason we're mocking it is because it generally feels very different to Sorare in a negative sense. Like it doesn't feel like it belongs. And I think Mike actually said it on Tuesday's show that it was basically like at some point it's just going to be, what did he call it? Part of the furniture or something like that. Like we'll get used to it, and it is what it is. But I'm not. It's going to take me a long time to accept's not the right word, but I'll go with it, to like accept that this is it. This is the progress bar delivery, essence and capsules and Sorare Industries and sports scientists. And really none of this makes any sense for a fantasy football game. And that's sort of the issue. Boston Sean said burning and crafting happen on Rainmakers, so Rainmakers is an NFT fantasy product that really doesn't resemble Sorare that much. And it basically was able to avoid one of the big issues that Sorare had by doing this burning and crafting thing. But also there's as far as I know, there's never been a part of Rainmakers that was like, these are collectibles and you get them forever and you can use them forever. And it really was kind of built around you buy these cards, use them for the season, and then they're kind of junk. And I know that you can use older cards for certain competitions, but it was just a very different game. And I would also argue that the crafting part of Rainmakers and a lot of other NFT games is very different than what we're being told is crafting in Sorare. And so that's sort of the issue. I've been talking a lot, and so I'm going to go back to the chat here just so we don't lose anyone. Alex, I don't think we talked about food yesterday. Does anyone remember? I don't think so. So we'll see. David said, never laughed so hard like this week on the pod. Well, that's good. And yeah, Mike couldn't stop laughing. Like I was struggling to have a serious conversation. I feel bad because Peter looked like the real pro, like working through it and talking through it. And Mike and I were just giggling at the whole thing, which I feel like is not a great response from us, but also it's like, that's just how we felt at the time. And so like, that was the feeling we had, and it came out. And I forget who I was talking to about this recently, but recently in my life, and I don't want to say like in the last few days, but like over the past few years, I've had kind of a mental or a psychological decision. I've made one that I can't control, and I don't think anybody can control how other people feel. And you can kind of control how you react to a feeling, but really like what you feel is it's not a decision. It's just like, that's how I feel. And so when we kept talking about it, like you find something funny, and like that doesn't mean everybody finds it funny, but what we were talking about this week felt funny at the time, and so we laughed about it. And that's the problem. And Alex Wilson said it's gimmicky and deserves mocking. And I think it's gimmicky. Deserves mocking sounds very negative. And unfortunately, I feel like that's how it came off this week, that we were mocking it when really we were just like, we thought it was funny. We felt like humor in it. And when you feel humor in something, you laugh about it. And so it felt like we were mocking it. The problem is that the idea that it represents, I think, is a very good one. And again, like we've talked about it for years. But my immediate response to it was to laugh at it. And that turned into the mocking. And so I don't think it was fair for us to do that. And I said this to Andy actually after the show yesterday, that I felt bad about how much we made fun of it, because obviously somebody had this idea, put it together, maybe worked with a few other people, then kind of presented it to others. Like, this is a very big deal in Sorare, and it was not fair for us, I don't think, to like mock it as much as we did. And I felt like I should say that today, because while I still don't like it, and that sounds stupid too, actually, because who cares what I think? But I think there were better ways to do it. I think there were simpler ways to do it, and we're already kind of in a platform that can get very complicated, and now we're kind of adding very unfamiliar terms. I mean, they could be familiar to other people in other games, but when you think of the people who are here, and most likely the next wave of people, it just doesn't feel like what they are doing with Essence and Capsules and Sorare Industries makes any sense to me. Like, I don't see the connection. And so when you are thinking of the next group of people who are going to play this game, and you have to explain to them what this is, it just doesn't seem like a natural progression, no pun intended, to explaining the game. And so it makes it difficult for us when people are like, oh, how do you play Sorare? Or what do you do? And you're like, we go through everything that we know. You know, you scout players, you look on the market, you try to get the best price possible, you play them in SO5. Here are the competitions you can play. And then there's Essence. And I feel like at a lot, and this is not going to be like an avoidable thing. It's not like you can say, I just don't feel like playing Rivals. Essence is going to be part of the game. And while you could just let it sit and never use it, like you're at a disadvantage if you accumulate enough essence for something and you just don't use it. But it just feels like an extra step that we have to explain that really has very little, if not nothing, to do with the rest of the game. Sorare Soul, who we were talking about this back and forth on Twitter. The fundamentals of this are great, but it is definitely acceptable to critique the skin of it and how it's been delivered. And that's kind of how I feel. And Boston Sean said all cards are disposable on Rainmakers, which right. And Sorare is kind of has always been the opposite of, there's a benefit to you holding these cards forever. TJ, progress towards something is good, but this factory nonsense isn't it. Why don't we just replace Essence with the coins and a buy tiered reward box for a set value of coins? Yeah. Major NFT said, I'm happy they tried something. It would be boring if they stopped innovating. It's not that we are like, I'm glad that they tried this, that like the progress part, but it's not this. It just will never make sense to me. Sorare Soul said, scratch your left ear if you're being forced to apologize against your will. I don't want to apologize. And Andy said this Friday show has just become damage control for Sorare Andrews. No. It like, there's nothing that I said yesterday or on Tuesday's show with MPen and Peter that that I'm apologizing for, or let me say, there's nothing that I said that I wish I hadn't said, because Tuesday was basically the day that they announced it, and our reaction was that it felt like we were laughing at it. And Boston Sean said ridicule is a legitimate form of critique. So we'll see. Yeah, so I agree with that. Yes, but I feel like Tuesday, the reason why everything felt very mocking is Tuesday was our like initial reaction to it. We just heard of it. Like we had no intention of talking about Essence or and the Card Factory, but it was announced that day, and it was almost impossible not to discuss it. And our initial feeling was like, this doesn't make any sense, and it's just kind of funny. Like we found it funny. The word essence really has like no one has ever used the word essence when it comes to Sorare, I don't think. And so then to use that word to represent some sort of colored liquid in a capsule that you will get in a reward box. And if you accumulate enough of this liquid, you can turn that into a Sorare card. The absurdity, or what I considered the absurdity, was funny to me. So we laughed about it on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we didn't talk about it at all on Wednesday. That was just to talk about how terrible super rares are. But yesterday, we decided to have fun with it. We found this thing that we found funny, and we wanted to talk about it because finding things funny is fun. And Sorare Andrews generally is about finding ways to have fun, different fun with Sorare. And so we had fun with that. And it did, afterwards, I was like, it does feel like we're mocking it a little bit. And maybe maybe I'm sensitive to the word mocking, because we weren't mocking like the people who came up with this idea. And I feel like that's kind of how it comes off. Like people have good and bad ideas all the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean like they need to be mocked. But we mocked this idea, and I don't think we'll stop mocking it. But I just want to be clear, like, I'm sure there was lots of hard work that went into this, and I don't want to put people down for working hard on something. I just kind of wish they worked hard and created something different. Yeah, there we go. Toby said, how it works is great. The only real issue is the way they named it and presented it. And that's, I kind of tried to say that yesterday, and I don't know if it came out that way, but that's basically, and like, again, we've thought this progress bar idea, or some sort of progression part of the game, that is not about moving from limited to rare or rare to super rare, because we've kind of established that didn't ever really exist. You could win cards above, but like ultimately you progress by just buying. But progressing towards a card within the scarcity has always made sense, both from a gameplay perspective of you're winning something towards a card, and good for Sorare because they are slowing down the reward distribution. They're not reducing it, but they're slowing it, which they have to. Sorry, I keep falling way behind on the chat. Mike said the problem is the info related was very witches and warlock stuff, so it was going to leave plenty to the imagination. They really need to release substantial info straight away so as to reduce the speculation. That's a whole nother topic that I don't hate announcements of announcements as much as other people. But maybe because I'm literally employed, like I have an actual job to talk about stuff like this. And so like the less that they announce, it's more like we can speculate and talk about pros and cons of things. And if they just announced everything with all the specifics, like what would we talk about all the time? GS said, Sorare make many stupidly executed things. If you will make apologies video for your reactions on each of them, you'll get many dislike videos. I don't think that's fair at all. I think Sorare doesn't have many stupidly executed things. Surface said, if the actual feature is solid, the name can be changed. If the feature is excellent, no one will care it's called Essence. So I don't disagree with you. And I agreed with Mike that at some point, like it is just part of the game. It would seem weird to me for them to change the name at this point, but who knows? Dream Oblivion said, what is the age average for users? I think the younger player will find it cool. It is already used in other games. So I actually was thinking about this recently because I think it was something, it was definitely Haber who said it, and I can't remember if it was on Twitter or where he did. But I think there is this general thought that people who play these types of games, including like FIFA, and all of the games that we were talking about yesterday, Clash of Clans and all this stuff, people think it's just for like a really young audience. And while that younger audience does play those games, there is an older audience that plays FIFA and other video games like that. And they're the ones with the money. And those are kind of the users that like Sorare is trying to get. They're not trying to attack the 18 to 24 demographic. It's the 25 to 50 because those people have money. And so while, yes, it did feel like there were kind of marketing towards this younger audience because we keep saying they're like gamifying it, but they're like basically new gamifying, like they're using a different gaming environment for this. There is a large number of people within that, like the older demographic, that do play those games. And so theoretically, there is like some crossover of people who like are my age, I'm 42, or a little younger, that play games that include essence and potions and all that stuff. And so maybe it does kind of sell them. The problem is like the crossover between people who want to do that and play a fantasy football game just seems so low that like, why branch out in that direction to alienate your existing users with this concept that like makes no sense compared to the game that we play right now. Pascal said, if someone asks what Essence is, you just say it's a progress bar to get a card and that's it. So why not just call it the progress bar? And that's a big thing for me. I have spent a lot of my working life either talking like this or writing, or, I mean, I guess that's it. But I have spent a lot of time in my career trying to explain seemingly complicated things in very simple ways. And even people who are able to understand complex things appreciate when it's just easier to understand. And part of that process is using 5 words when 5 work instead of using 50 words, or calling something by a very descriptive name versus something that's completely different that then requires explanation. Like if you can explain something using the terms that you want to use, instead of calling something else and then having to explain it, that it just complicates it. Whether it's difficult to understand or not, it's already wasting time. And you have to constantly think something else. Oh, there's this, but it actually means this. Just call it what you want to call it, or just call it what it is. Excuse me. Don't make up words or these fantasies or these stories to explain something that's very easy to explain. And that is ultimately the biggest critique I have for Essence and capsules and Sorare Industries and sports scientists. There's this whole story being written, and people are going to read it, and they'll be like, so what is it? And you're like, well, it's a progress bar. You win something, and that just, you hold that until you get enough of them, until you get a card. And just the way that my brain thinks because of my years of working actual jobs like this one, is that it's just easier to call it what it is. And we can spend more time than analyzing that and strategizing around that instead of having to translate this story into what it is. I've gone on so many what feels like rants. Sorry, guys. All right, let me catch up. I'm now 12 minutes behind on the chat, guys. I am really sorry. Anyway, Ben Johnson, you've missed nothing. John Andrews, surely it has to be called the progressance bar. So, so I don't always read comments before I put them on screen or I read them. And when I saw that, when I was like, oh, just you're going to say surely just needs to be called the progression bar. And so I put it on and progressance bar. That's great. Alex Wilson said, I mean, it's peak funny to be a fly on the wall during the meeting for all of this. I agree, Ben. Goose said, did you hear the Sorare ramble yet? Haber has a different opinion on this topic, which puts it into perspective. I have not. If somebody wants to summarize Haber's so that I can, instantly respond to it. Charlie said, I was someone who commented on yesterday's show. I was just showing my point of view and disagreeing with yours and Black's. No need to apologize. I just disagreed with the direction of critique you guys took. So, Charlie, I actually shared that with Andy. And I actually feel like we did. There were definitely points in the show where we were like, this is a good idea. And we called it the progress bar. And the issue with the whole card factory and everything that goes with it is that our reaction to it was so like thinking that it came out of nowhere, that's what we focused on. When had they just said, this is a progress bar, we would have talked about that. Would have been a very serious conversation that may have even been helpful for people. But instead, we were reacting to the delivery and not what was being delivered. And I think, like I said before, like trying to explain things easily, like I think that's part of the critique, is that they are complicating it with a fictionalized literal fantasy for what feels like absolutely no positive reason. Mike said, Sir Andrews is the fun show, always has been, and better stay that way. But I feel like yes, like that's I don't want to say the point of that show is fun, but like that show is fun. And it just feels like I don't know. What's up, Scosmo? Thanks for coming in. Red or Dead, somewhere between the concept and the delivery, Sorare forgot about their demographic. So, like, back to what I said, though, and I'm sorry, you probably said this before I said all that, but there probably is at least a comparable demographic that plays those types of games. But I just don't think that people are going to come to Sorare because of the card factory. And the people who would come to Sorare are going to see this card factory and being like, that's weird. Where did that come from? And so like, that's where it seems weird to me. Ben said card fragments and piecing a card together is a much better way of presenting this idea, which we kind of thought they were going to do. Cause like in the API, it says like shards or something, which is like a piece of something. Scosmo said, how about just not calling it something completely irrelevant to all of the angles of the platform, sports, NFT, fantasy? There's no rationale to using the terminology they've used. So yes, that's exactly how I feel. And you said this 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry, 11 minutes ago. Mike said, we talk about the specifics rather than the guessing. Yeah. Philly deal. I'm just going to go through the chat now. I'm going to catch up. I don't mind the announce gives the community a chance to respond if they absolutely hate it before Sorare puts a ridiculous amount of effort in. So I mean, hopefully they put a lot of effort into things before they even announce the announcement, but we'll see. Scosmo said Sorare don't know what demographic they're targeting, which is the fundamental issue with their marketing. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think they know. They just it's hard to do it. David said, "Look into Penthes. He's 51 and plays FIFA." Yeah. World of Sorare Craft. Nanzo says, "Am I the only one that doesn't think Essence is a big deal? It's just a slower way of rewarding cards and reward boxes. Even reward boxes are incidental to the main gameplay." So Nanzo, I think I like people are agreeing with you. I think it's fine. Like I actually really like the idea. What I don't like is complicating that idea using terms that are completely undescribing, non-descriptive of what it is. We'll get used to it. Like it is what it like we'll deal with it. But it it's not it's just not helpful. Patrick said, "I'm confused. Why are we acting like older people can't handle the word essence?" It has nothing to do with the word. Although I take that back. It's not that we have a problem with the word essence. It's that we have a problem that the word essence doesn't describe anything of what it is supposed to do. Sorry, I keep like not doing the chat. Pascal said, "I think it's a bigger deal in the sense that it reduces the number of level ups in the boxes, which will avoid making XP useless in the end when every card is maxed up too quick." So the 3 max boost, though, I don't think XP gets maxed as quickly as everybody thinks it does. Philly said, "Not reading comments. I read this one before putting them on screen is very much bold strategy cotton. Let's see how it works for them." Yeah. Ben said, "Were they worried about backlash for calling it a progress bar?" I have no idea. I'm not part of any feedback loop with them, and so I don't know if the feedback they got was progress bar doesn't make sense, or people know that you were going to do the progress bar, and so it looks silly that you're doing it 4 years later, 3 years later, 2 years later, whatever. I don't know. I don't know. My excuse me. My uh, my advice, if they had asked, if they came to me and they were like, "We want to do the progress bar. How would you present it?" And I would say, I would present it as a progress bar because it's understandable. It's something that has been talked about in the community. And that doesn't like mean that new users or recent new users or potential new users would definitely get it. But the idea of a progress bar, this isn't like a Sorare thing. People know what a literal progress bar looks like. And so it's just one of those things that you can say the word and people know what they get it. Like, that's the point. What's up, Peter? Thanks for coming in. Swimming pool in the movie Cocoon was filled with essence. Okay. Sorare Turkey said they need to appeal to different customer bases. We, the 86 people here, are dinosaurs. So I don't disagree with that. And I think it's really important to like try to expand who you're marketing this game to. I just don't see the connection between what they came up with and having what they came up with be a reason for somebody to play. Like if you were somebody who somehow understood what it all meant and you were like, "Oh yeah, this is just like this other game I played." And you're like, "Yeah, it's part of a fantasy football game." You'd be like, "Oh, that makes no sense." But again, like this is one of those times where I wish we had a video from Sorare where they really explained it. And I feel like this is a very big change, like the ability to win things in reward boxes that eventually lead to cards that we're getting announced like at the end of May that's going to start in 2 weeks. Like, doesn't this feel kind of big? That maybe they should have done this in like January or whenever the mid-March update was supposed to come, or in August. Like, I don't know. It feels big. Major NFT said, let's remember how training went for them in the fitness center, which, like, I actually think the response to the fitness, that they responded poorly to the fitness feedback. Like, I think fitness could have worked. Philly said, at 51, you should be moving on from FIFA to Football Manager. I mean, yes, Nep isn't 51. I know. It's an old joke, literally. Goose said, I don't think anyone cares about the made-up story behind Essence, to be honest, as long as it's clear how to use Essence for everybody. The name won't make something significantly harder to understand. Like, I could not disagree with this anymore. Having to explain how Essence works by using the term progress bar when you could have called it progress bar, and everyone knows that's why this becomes a deal. Like, meaning like a big deal, basically. Like, that's my problem with it. Kennedy also agrees with Nanzo and says, I think the problem with it is that they don't really provide much context with the rollout, and our imaginations run rampant with how good or bad the update could be. Pascal says Nep is 39, which I don't think is true. I thought Nep was older than me, to be honest. Scosmo said, I don't know how you could be worried about the backlash of using the term progress bar, but I think Essence is the appropriate alternative. Yeah. Andy, I don't hate the factory. I hate what the factory produces. How about that? Charlie said, I get it cost a fortune, but those videos where they had the guy in the studio with MLS go officially licensed was brilliant. Should have been a regular on every major update. Yeah. Bring Spoon back. Ben said, I really wish the announcements were video explainers. I find it strange Sorare don't have a video explainer video in general to help with onboarding. So actually, I've thought about this recently. Oh my God, I'm almost caught up. So I think it was on, I forget where it was. It might have been on the Sorare Ramble when Guy and Momo were on. And the response to that was kind of like, I wish Sorare did more videos instead of these long blog posts. And the biggest problem with that is when people want to like go back and see something. Like, I literally pulled the blog up yesterday on Sorare Andrews so that we could talk about how things were how it was scientifically possible to do all of this stuff in a fantasy football game. You can't do that with a video. Like, you're not going to go back and watch a 40-minute video, 20-minute video, 10-minute video, 5-minute video to find like that one spot. So that's why they like need to do these blogs. And that's not to say they can't do both. Like, obviously they could do both, but having blogs that people can go back to and easily, control F and find something like that makes it's much easier for people to do that. Gia said you could do this talking head while streaming Warcraft on Twitch to reach non-dinosaur viewers. Yeah. Quinny, what's up? Blue Tomatoes, I call it Twitter. I like vehemently refuse to call it X. Brad said, for fans of Dr. Strangelove, great movie. General Jack D. Ripper forever tainted the word essence. Can't hear the word without laughing. Yeah. Ben said, I always think of the UEFA Nations League. They had a 4-minute video explaining the concept with gorgeous graphics. And in 4 minutes, I went from having no idea how it worked to a perfect understanding. So I'm not saying that they don't work, but I don't think those are the only things that you can do. But I agree. I think this is... So Sorare, when they did new cards, used to have videos kind of explaining the new card design, or at least like a blog explaining it. And it was really cool because they were like, I remember for the baseball ones, they had a diamond somewhere that was kind of hidden, and they were like, it's baseball. And I thought that was really cool. And this felt like an announcement that needed like an explanation of like why we did this. And I'm not saying they owe that to us, but there are too many people who are like, why did they do this? That I feel like they should address it. That's it. Ian Sorer said, long gone are the days where you could just tell someone buy 5 players and can win cash or cards. Mostly because we can't win anymore. Rob said the way they changed the game so much, the videos are outdated really fast, which also keeps me employed and have something to talk about every day, which is nice. Surfer said, I think the timing of this short build-up, weird point in the season indicates that this will be a minor feature despite seemingly big. It will be like coins you will occasionally use to get a card. So I will say Surface is the most bearish person I know on this topic. Like he fully believes that this will be just like coins and we'll just totally forget about it. And yeah, Nanzo said these shards, winnable in potluck reward boxes, are not a progress bar. Sounds like a leap. So I'm glad you brought that up, Nanzo, because that is very important. Because the progress, maybe that's why they didn't call it a progress bar, because it's totally random. But these are like things that, sorry. So Surface was saying somewhere, maybe it was on Tuesday's show, that he thought it would take 18 to 24 months for him to get a card, which I thought was very, very, like, if that was the case and Surface has a significantly big gallery, that if that was the case, then it was almost not worth doing. If it would take him almost 2 years to get one card, it would take most people 10 years, 20 years. And if that's the case, like, why even do it? But Nanzo, and I feel like this is something that we've kind of forgotten. And maybe, yeah, so you win essence in reward boxes. And so there's probably more likely of a chance that you do not win essence, that you win something else, either an actual card or level up or a jersey or whatever the hell they're going to put in. So not only will it take a while to win boxes, but then you actually have to win essence in a box. And I think maybe the way that I had always looked at the progress bar is it's like a guaranteed thing. Like if it wasn't winnable in a box, but it was just a however many places down win essence, that feels more like a progress bar. I didn't think about that, Nanzo. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. Goose said, but maybe I'm looking at it from my own perspective because I will adapt easily to any change they make. It doesn't mean everyone new users will. I don't think anyone will have trouble like adapting to this. Like we'll deal with it. We'll get our essence. They'll show us somewhere on the website how much essence we have and when we can cash that in for I keep using the verb cash in, but I don't know. It seems spend, use, but like it'll be easy to figure out once it's implemented. I just think it almost mocks Sorare in the way that they do it because it's so different that they were like, oh, what we're doing, let's create something completely unrelated to this part of our platform to make it more interesting. Like, John said, I remember the outcry at Lister Play. There was a meltdown when it was first mentioned. Now it's part of the game and we barely give it a second thought. It's really funny because I actually complained about Lister Play yesterday. I think the funniest part of Lister Play was people thinking that it made card prices stop declining for any reason other than there was just no more supply. Like if you were selling a card for $50 and nobody wanted to buy it, you were like, hey, $50 card. But if you had listed for $20, somebody would sell it. But because you can't list it because it's in a lineup, you're like, oh no, worth 50. Billy said the timing could be so that they get a month or two in the test period before the new Euro season. I hope so. Halogen said, I hope in the future they release some sort of draft mode that you enter, either with money or tokens you can win in boxes. If executed well, something like this would be a huge addition to the game. Surface said, he said 18 to 24 months for a star card, not a card. That's a big, important difference. I apologize. Yes, that is what you said. But I still think even if it takes you possibly 2 years to get a star, then why are we doing it? Quinny likes redeem. Yeah. Philly Dilly, completely off topic. Sorare Data SO5 utility screen, does using a card in academy or training count in the pick percentage? I have no idea. Charlie said there's nothing to adapt to. You'll get X amount of essence over X amount of weeks, and then you redeem it. People are making a mountain out of a molehill here. Again, nobody is making a mountain out of a molehill about how to do this. All of the criticism is coming up with this Marvel-esque story as part of a fantasy football platform, fantasy sports platform, because they're going to do it for baseball and basketball also. Major FT said, do you think it's weird they didn't just open a friendlies competition? I think it's weirder that they are scoring friendlies. Zando, have you already discussed the possibility to introduce feature to burn cards to gain essence? I have not discussed it because I don't think that's where this is going. I really don't. I really don't see a world where Sorare's licensed partners want people burning their things. I think that's actually where the problem lies, not with Sorare directly. John Andrews, somewhere in Paris sits a singular smug employee who got outvoted on the word essence. That's a great line, John. Nanzo said, outrage about a name and a bit of lore on a minor feature. Sounds like peak international break behavior. That could be, Nanzo. Scoring Belarus versus Russia is so weird. Yeah. Raul said, Sorare should do like CS2, have contract where you can use 10 cards to get one. So the Hoodwink said this perfectly, I feel, that I've yet to see a burn mechanism idea that has any positive for Sorare. It's fully a benefit to the user. And to say like, oh, if users are happier, or oh, they'll buy all these tier 5 so that they can burn them. I just don't see that happening. People aren't buying cards to burn at this point. And if you can ever burn something that's worth something good, Sorare would rather sell that. Goose said, so basically the issue you have with Essence is that its name and the story behind it doesn't fit the current Sorare landscape. I wouldn't even say that it doesn't fit the current landscape, and more that it's just so unrelated and undescriptive that it's actually a net negative for people who want to play the game. Brad said, semantics aside, which obviously I can't put aside, I think this idea could go over well. If you get 5% towards a star card to go along with your tier 3 finish, where your goalkeeper cost you a tier 1 by conceding late, it makes the game week better. Like, it's another prize. I think that's positive. I think the idea is very, very good. I think they're complicating it for absolutely no reason in a game that is already very complicated. Like, there are easy ways to play this game, but at some point, if you want to take this game seriously, it becomes complicated. And that doesn't mean it's hard. It's just complicated. And now we're introducing an aspect that complicates it further. Yeah. Surface said, I'm curious, why would licensed partners care about burning? Do you think licensing fees cover the offer market? I do not think licensing fees cover. I don't think the secondary market fees pay for licenses, like not remotely close. I do think that clubs get most of that money, though. That is like pure speculation. Like I literally know nothing about that, but I would guess that of the 5% that Sorare charge for secondary markets, that at least 3/4 goes directly to the clubs. And the more you burn, the fewer opportunities they have, for those cards to get sold, because they get sold once or one last time, and then like they're gone, they're burned. So you're actually reducing the number of cards that these clubs could possibly make money from, even though I think it's minimal. It's minimal now, at least. Let's see. Backside players can be subbed on added. Milk Rain. Backside player can be subbed on equals added utility and removes cards. Oh, burn mechanism card fusion. That doesn't make sense to me. Pro Sorare burn mechanism. Burning a classic card adds it back to the in-season auction pool. So any card burned can be resold by Sorare. Why burning a classic card adds it back to the in-season auction pool? So any card burned can be resold by Sorare. I mean, that's not really burning then. Like that's not burning at all. The point of burning is that it disappears. It lowers the supply. And that's not doing it at all. It's just letting Sorare sell a card twice. Server said a burn mechanism idea works on the same economics as traders. You are paying for immediacy. There are possible scenarios where some users win in the short term and Sorare wins overall. How? Like, how does Sorare win by having people burn cards? Because I think realistically, most people will burn rewards, like bad rewards. So those are cards that Sorare made zero money on. And now, if you burn them, Sorare losing any possibility of getting any money out of it because there's no secondary market fee. And I don't think it does anything for the market. Like Dreamability said, but it would be great to remove worthless and retired players. What's the actual difference, though, if they're in your gallery or they're burned? Theoretically, the overall supply is different, is lower, but it doesn't matter. Those cards are worthless anyway. Like the problems that people think burning solves don't solve them at all. You said, so how can something be complicated and be relatively easy to adapt to? I mean, we're all intelligent people. We can just respond to it. Blue Tomato said, I think burning is like the Premier League back when people hope it changes everything for the better, but in the end, it doesn't. That's a nice way to put it. Mike said, how can you put a burned classic card back into the current season if the player doesn't play for that club or even a licensed club? It's also like, it's not a burned card. Like, you have to think of this literally, like physically. If you literally had a card, this Carlos Heel card behind me, if I literally lit that up in flames, that's the point. It now does not exist. So having it like go back into an auction pool or whatever you're not burning the card. You're just letting Sorare sell it again. Sorare Juju, what's up? Thanks for coming in, saying hi. But yeah, I don't again, I'm still waiting for this. This is why Sorare benefits from burning versus us just saying like, I have a bunch of worthless cards and I would like to hand them in for something cool or better. And like, what is the benefit to Sorare? Nixon said, how many likes for you to burn the Gil card on Sorare, Andrew? Why would I burn it? It's pretty cool. Tuggy. Mike said, Tuggy will tell you the chemicals in the Gil card won't burn. It'll just melt. Probably. Because he is a legitimate chemist. So I'm told. So yeah, I think the progress bar is great. I just wish we called it the progress bar. And frankly, I kind of hope that they I kind of hope that they explain it like it feels like one of those things that actually shouldn't be in reward boxes, but maybe I'm just overthinking it. Surface said, if a burn mechanism leveraged the immediacy in a way that long-term helped the market, Sorare would benefit if the increased revenue was more than whatever they gave as a burn reward. I mean, that seems like very hypothetical and imaginary. Like if, would, whatever. Like what does that even mean? Like where does the burn mechanism work for everyone? Because like literally the point is to make cards more valuable. Right? Like that's the point of the burn mechanism, because we want to reduce the amount of supply there is out there. The problem is that these cards are player based. So eliminating a ton of tier 5 and tier 4 cards from the ecosystem doesn't really make Mbappe worth anymore, because we still have the same number of Mbappe cards. And if the benefit to burning an Mbappe is so much better than owning the Mbappe, then your game is broken. And so I don't understand I don't see the middle ground where it works for both sides. Can we just put all of these pro burners in the same chat so they can melt each other's brains instead of everyone else's? Oh, come on, Charlie. I think it's so. I think what gets me, and I'll be honest, that I'm like a complete novice when it comes to other NFT projects. Not even a novice. I know nothing about other NFT projects. But I would like to see one where burning actually helped. Now, the problem is that Sorare is not just like any other NFT project. And so just like reducing the amount of cards that is out there, like there is no real comp. And I think people think that it matters and that it would really help. But I don't know if the evidence is out there that it actually helps. Particularly because like a lot of NFT projects don't have as many cards as this. And maybe you could look at like Top Shot. I assume you can burn Top Shot moments, but are the movements in the market there actually based on a reduction of the supply because of how many cards were burned? Or is it just totally unrelated and they just happen to be two things that happened that led to something? Goose said, I don't disagree that a name that isn't clear. I'm sorry. I don't disagree. A name that isn't clear is a net negative. But the question is, how big is the net negative in the grand scheme of things? I would almost argue it doesn't matter. If you have an avoidable net negative, you avoid it. Full stop. Pascal said, if a car is worth $1, but a user has no use for it, they will burn, and potentially whatever they get in response is worth less. Oh, it's a card. That was like $1 card. Let me read that again. If a card is worth $1, but a user has no use for it, they will burn, and potentially whatever they get in response is worthless. So I would argue that if they burned a card for $1 and got $2 worth of something, then your game is broken. You shouldn't, like, what you're giving out, it shouldn't be worth more than the card itself. Milkrain said, burn works if a bad player becomes good and less supply exists when he gets good, and thus the card will sell for more on auction in the future. I guess. I just don't see how often that happens where we see a considerable value increase because of scarcity. Especially because every year, theoretically, that player gets 1,000 more cards, or can. Well, 1,111 more. Sean said, because all cards on Rainmakers expire, burning gets something back. Not the case with Sorare. And I would argue that because DraftKings has had that forever. I mean, it's been like 3 years. That you went into it knowing that was the case, that like cards could be burned and you would get something. And it's like a gigantic change now. Ben said, Ultimate Champions do it well. What does that mean, though? What do you mean by they do it well? What are they doing well? Dream Oblivion said, but burning would be the same as trading to bots, which I think is not right. Rude said, let's open a burn tournament. The cards you enter are gone after the game week, but the prizes have to be juicy. Server said, it makes Mbappe worth more if there are X amount less of other cards in the ecosystem. Any card is worth more when less of other cards. And yes, people would burn bad cards, which often become good. So bad cards do not often become good. Like that is not true. There are some, absolutely. So I also don't think this is right at all. I don't think in reality it's right. I think it's in economic theory, it makes sense that Mbappe limited card is worth more if there are fewer cards in the ecosystem, because you're like, oh, the total supply is smaller. But it in practice, in reality, it is just not the case. If you got rid of every single tier 4 and tier 5 card on the platform, Mbappe's price does not move. There are not people who have all of these cards that just disappear. And they're like, instead of owning these 48 tier 5s, I'm going to go buy an Mbappe. Like that does not happen. And maybe the value of the worst cards change. Actually, those are the cards that move up a little bit, but I still don't think it's noticeable. Like I will vehemently disagree with that. Lucas said, I think for the longevity of the game, a burning mechanism will have to come about. Otherwise, classic season becomes way too saturated. So I just don't think that's right. I think we're, what did we say, 4 or 5 years away from having like max supply. That's basically like all of the like it's a projection that the number of usable cards, meaning basically like active players, will not change, will not go above what we'll see in 4 or 5 years. Because like there's a burning mechanism just based on players retiring. Like the cards become worthless. And so like it's just the natural burn. It's not a burn, it's just natural extraction of those cards from the ecosystem. And while they're still here, and yes, you could still buy them if you want, like nobody's actively going out and buying retired cards. And yeah. Raul said, why are bored apes expensive then? This is watch trading. Yeah, I have no idea why bored apes are expensive. I also don't think that bored apes have anything to do with Sorare. Blue Tomato said, normally you would burn shit cards in order to get better cards, which sounds like inflation to me, so I don't see the positive effect on burning. Every card will simply be more valuable if there are fewer cards. But of course, nobody will burn Messi. Everyone will burn tier 5s and 4s. So like, It's not that they're simply more valuable. Like if you removed all of my tier 4s and 5s, like, like Service said, I do agree that they could institute a burn mechanism and it could totally not work at all. But right now, there are too many cards for the number of users. So that's different, though. That's different. I don't think that you burn cards because there are not enough users. Mike said, why would Sorare want a burn mechanism linked to the NFT blockchain tech when it's spent the last 6 to 12 months trying to break ties with that space? I'm guessing they would I don't even know if they would call it a buyback. Philly said, Sorare opens a second auction market for classic cards. Put your card to auction. Sorare auctions it. Sorare keeps half the sale. With in-season versus classic now, I don't think it hurts regular auctions much. I think we should be able to auction our cards ourselves. Like I think the Sorare secondary marketplace has a lot of room to grow, allowing us to do auctions, Dutch auctions, bundles. Like the fact that we can't even sell, like trade more than 10 cards at once, like what are we doing? Sorry, I'm still going through the chat here. Sorare Soul. Has anyone ever considered that Sorare might not want card values to increase now? How many of us would sell up and leave with profit if we could? I don't think that's the case, no. Don't call my retired players worthless. They are collectibles. I mean, as somebody who's still sitting on a Michael Bradley super rare, yeah. Service said, forget Mbappe specifically. You don't think if 50% of the cards just disappeared, yes, burning wouldn't lower it that much. That wouldn't increase the overall value of the other 50%. I don't think it would increase the value. Like, I don't think the value of the bottom 50% moves to the top 50%. And like you said, like we're not going to burn that many cards, but it's not like every card is not equal. And so burning the bottom 25%, like nobody would even notice. Like if you burn them for tickets where you could get Sorare hats, I don't think that money, well, obviously the money just disappears. Like you're not getting anything back of value, meaning of well, I mean, I guess you're getting something tangible with the hat, but like, what if that was the case? You could burn cards for coins that got you a Sorare hat. And people did that, not even get you a hat, the chance of a hat. And we eliminated every tier 5 on the platform. So there's no money coming in to the users. So they don't have anything more to spend for the top 20% of cards. So like why are those things more valuable? The supply of cards that we want is the same. It's the supply of the cards we don't want is gone. And so could there be an increase? I guess, but I don't think it's anything noticeable that it's worth going through and literally eliminating these cards from the platform. Ben said the burn on UC keeps the floor price of cards high. In UC, cards have a bonus based on their condition. The condition bonus deteriorates based on how many times the card is used in competitions. Yeah, so it's a fitness. I don't care about the floor price. Floor prices mean nothing to me. I mean, list or play keeps floor prices higher on Sorare. Like that was their solution. I don't care what floor prices are. I care what cards are actually selling for. So like, does Ultimate Champions have list or play? You burn cards to increase condition and has led to a floor of $6 on Ultimate Champions as people buy crap cards to boost their good ones. I mean, people buy crap cards on Sorare for their collections, for collection bonus. Like, I don't see how that actually helps. Like, it's like people are buying crap cards and floors are up, but floors of the cards that people want are not low enough for people to buy them. Hallinan said the real question is, will the player base get big enough to where 10 years worth of cards will be in demand? If not, Classic will go to zero. I believe it will get big enough. And I have no idea. Philly said third-party sites that auction Classic cards would be great, but very hard to hit critical mass. Yeah. Ben said, I've turned 25 pounds on Ultimate Champions into a gallery of worth 600 pounds in over a year and a half just from grinding the game. Sorare can learn from Ultimate Champ. What is there to learn? Like there are other people who have done that on Sorare. Like, this is where I am with Sorare Juju. No one wants these cards. So if we burn 50% of them, then still nobody wants them. So the price is the same. Yeah. Major NFT says, as someone who does collections, there are some bad players who are very expensive because you need them to complete the collection. So we want to do burning so that cards that nobody wants, bad players, become very expensive. Nanzo said burning cards for coins could make sense if they made coins valuable. Like, no one on this platform should be wanting coins to be valuable more than Nanzo. So Ben said they can list and play on Ultimate Champion. So they basically just came up with a different way to leave floors higher. But again, cards sold and the value of cards sold is always more important than the floor. Hey Eagle said, are you surprised Sorare isn't following more what DraftKings is doing with Rainmakers and burning crafting, mostly talking about previous season cards? I'm not surprised at all. I do think that Sorare probably would have done things differently had DraftKings been first to market, or at least the idea of that. But Sorare unknowingly shot themselves in the foot by saying, like, these things are collectibles and they will always be usable. And the move to in-season competitions that you play for cash is a direct response to their realization that they can't just keep letting us play with our classic cards forever and ever and ever. And I think we're just going to continue to see that type of contest forever because that works more. And this is an idea that Maxime and I talked about like a year ago. Like we said, like they're going to have competitions where you can only use in-season cards, and everyone said we were crazy, that they would like never do that. That's exactly what they did. Blue Tomato said, if Laird lists his Joao Felix for 100 ETH, is he now worth 100 ETH? Answer surely is yes. And here you go, major NFT. Only if it sells. Exactly. I'm willing to drop it to 99. It's a collectible. He'll be in the Euros. Anyway, it was a longer burn conversation I was expecting to have, since I wasn't expecting to have one at all. You're right, Blue Tomato. Sorry. 100 ETH. Ben said, I feel like I've done a bad job of explaining this, but what I'm trying to say is Ultimate Champions players are very happy right now. My rewards are all good and sell within 2 days, and card prices scale with performance. Okay. Great. Ben, why do you think? Do I want to go down this road? Why do you think Ultimate Champions is not as big as Sorare? Is it just because of the licenses? Like I'm not familiar um, with Ultimate Champions at all. I was when they announced the Arsenal deal, I went to buy a Saka, and I was like, I don't know if this price is good, and I never found if it was, and so I left. And so I'm just curious, like, yeah. KB said UC and Sorare are in very different spots of their cycle. Sorare has been like that before. That is also true. Yeah, I think just in terms of the maturity of each company, they're very, very different. And but like I said, I'm really not familiar with Ultimate Champions at all. I would even argue I'm more familiar with Stocks FC, and I barely know that, and it's only from talking to Harry. And I haven't put any money in there either. But I mean, if people are enjoying it, that's great. Like that's great, good. I hope they do, and I hope people have fun on Sorare with Essence. Like I don't see how that like gamifies into something that I think is really fun, but hopefully I'm completely wrong. I would love to be wrong, because I do think the concept is great of winning something to get you closer to getting a card. I love it. Yeah. Blue Tomatoes, do you think it would be better for Sorare if they had a bigger competitor? I don't know. I mean, there are obviously benefits to having a legitimate competitor. Um, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably. Probably. I don't know. I am curious to see if Sorare will continue to have like an exclusivity on a lot of their licenses, and if they don't, then um, meaning if they don't keep the exclusivity, if a company would be able to kind of copy what they do. Like I don't know if Ultimate Champions is in any financial uh, situation where if like the big five leagues were like, yeah, we are not doing exclusive NFT contests contracts anymore. Come pay us, and if they are able to do that, like those things cost a lot of money, and Sorare raised a lot of money at like just the right time, and so it may not even be Sorare having an exclusive. It's just Sorare going to a league and saying, we think your NFTs are worth this amount of money, and it's just not an amount that anyone else can pay. And the other leagues will be like, oh, all right, yeah, we'll take that. Because it's not like there are 20 companies lining up to do this stuff. And so even the sum of whoever else, if they were like, oh no, we're going to do $1 million instead of $50 million, and we're just going to have all of these people pay us $1 million. Like, I just don't think there are enough companies for that. Mostly because this is such a niche, excuse me. This is such a niche. I don't even want to call it an industry, but football is obviously the most popular sport in the world, but fantasy football is very, very small. And now you're doing fantasy football with digital trading cards. Like there are only so many people that are interested in something like that. So it's not like there are going to be 100 companies lining up to do it. Andy said Laird's going to be the biggest Essence geek on the platform in 3 weeks, working on his factory, brewing up new formulas. Andy, I wouldn't. Look at that! I just got thrown off my own screen just for joking about that. Ben said, I'm not trying to do an Ultimate Champions versus Sorare thing, by the way. So I'm sorry if it comes across that way. It didn't. I mean, it actually absolutely came across that way, but I didn't take that as like a negative. I was genuinely curious, like what works on Ultimate Champions that doesn't work on Sorare or couldn't work on Sorare. So I don't know. Nanzo said the barriers to entry is too high and the business model too unproven to see a competitor to Sorare in the short term. Agreed. And yeah, I think that's a big that's kind of the big issue, and obviously a humongous benefit to Sorare because they're in totally uncharted waters, and it's just super risky for a new company to come in and be like, oh, we'll compete with them. I assume Ultimate Champions is the most suited for that because they kind of do it on a lower scale right now. I'm sure DraftKings would if they thought that they could make it work. But other than those two, I don't know. I don't know. That was a long show. I guess we had a lot to talk about and a lot of apologizing. Just kidding. But yeah, that's all I got for today. The schedule for the next few weeks, mostly for the month of June, are going to be really wonky. Just to warn everybody, it's a combination of I have some days off, and some of our regular guests are away, and just June becomes a funky month. And with the Euros and stuff, who knows? And Copa America, who knows what will happen? But the goal is to just keep doing shows. But again, yeah, there'll be some days where there are none, but I'll warn you guys for that. So yeah, thankfully there's a show today. So thank you to everybody for coming. If you could please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. Actually, let me see. Have you guys actually liked this video? We've got 83 people right now and 28 likes. It's disappointing. Sorry, soul. I hope you've been forgiven and your family released. That's a great one. Anyway, yeah. So if you could please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and yeah, good luck with all your lineups this weekend. I hope all of the players that you thought might start in these international friendlies do, unless they are in a contest where I am competing, in which case I hope you get lots of DNPs and I do not. Yeah, that's a joke, by the way. Kind of. Anyway, thank you to everybody. Good luck out there.